guys, so I did get a request to do my EDH deck tech over Saskia the Unyielding. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to go through the entire deck, but I feel first of all that's going to take too long, and I also have about 6 slots that I don't actually have the cards for yet. I have to wait a couple days to get those in. So what I want to do today is I want to go over some of the key cards that I have for the deck in certain categories and kind of like show you what this deck is about. There's a lot of different strategies that you can run for Saskia, so this is my take on her. So Saskia is a legendary creature human soldier with vigilance haste. Whenever she enters the battlefield, I get to choose a player, and whenever a creature I control deals damage to a player, I get to deal that much damage to the chosen player. So she kind of almost doubles damage. If you want to focus down one person, she's great for that. Or, you know, if somebody is like pillow forted up, or they just have a bunch of blockers, you can kind of like get indirect damage in that way. So I really like her design, and so what I want to do with her is basically this is kind of a mid-range deck, and so a lot of the cards in here are kind of mid casting costs, so you'll see that. The first group I want to show you are the equipments. Swiftfoot Boots, Hexproof is great. I don't run Lightning Greaves because sometimes Shroud actually screws me over. And she already has haste, so the haste is kind of wasted on her, but I can put Swiftness Boots on anybody. It's a cheap, effective card. Conqueror's Flail, this was in the pre-con deck with her. I really like it because it's cheap. It's basically, you know, it's 2 casting and 2 equip. It's basically a +4/+4. Because if I have Saskia out, that makes her 7/8. And as long as it's attached to a creature, my opponents can't cast spells during my turn, so very anti-blue card, and I really like that. Sunforger, another favorite card of mine. It's a little expensive if you think about the basically 6 mana to give a creature +4/+0. However, I use it for its ability, which is you get to unattach it for a red and a white, and basically just tutor up a one of my removal spells. I think I'm running 7 or 8 removal spells, and this hits all but one of them. Skyshroud Claim. This is part of my ramp package. This is probably one of the most underrated ramp cards I've ever seen. I use it in every deck that has green, and I feel like no one else runs this card. You get to search your library for up to 2 force cards and put them into play, not tapped. So you get to play them. So let's say you bring out, you know, a Temple Garden or something, you can just play it. It's great. Explosive Vegetation, good card, and Cultivate. I think I'm running actually like 10 ramp cards in this deck because I do want to get a lot of mana early. Momentous Fall. So now we're moving on to our draw. I had a hard time figuring out my draw in this deck because I didn't want to take an entire turn to just draw some cards. I wanted to like stay on tempo. So Momentous Fall is really against, you know, somebody's gonna kill my creature anyway. You know, if they're gonna Doomblade it, or they're gonna, you know, whatever, or if they exile it, you know, I don't want that. So this is a instant that lets me kill one of my own creatures. I sacrifice it, and then I draw cards equal to its power, and then I gain life equal to its toughness. So overall, it's a good instant. Harmonize, another good card. Just draw 3 cards for 4 mana. Here's what I was talking about with tempo. So I have Indulgent Tormentor, and I have Blood Gift Demon. So basically what these 2 cards do for me is, you know, they give me a 5 power creature for 5 mana with flying, and I get to draw cards at the beginning of my upkeep. Indulgent Tormentor I actually like a little bit more in this deck, just because if they decide to pay the 3 life or sacrifice a creature, I think that's more value, and most of the time they aren't going to do that. But these two cards function very similarly. It's just consistent draw power. Next up are my tutors. Again, I don't want to lose tempo with my tutors. I don't want to have a diabolic tutor, 2 colorless and a black or something. I don't want to spend a whole turn just doing that. So, Captain Sisay has a body. She has a small 2/2 body, but I have a lot of haste enablers in this deck. So she basically comes out, and I get to search my library that turn for a legendary card, and I have, I believe, about 15 legendary cards in this deck. So very, very useful. I'm also running Captain of the Watch, which just gives her a +1/+1. Not a huge deal, but she is a soldier. So that's something to keep in mind. So good card for this deck. Another good card is Worldly Tutor. Just 1 mana, search your library and put it on top of the deck. I have a lot of big, beefy creatures in this deck, and I feel like this just lets me get to them pretty easily. Enlightened Tutor, and this one basically is going to search up one of my equipments, or it's going to search up one of my 2 god cards that I have in this deck. Rune-Scarred Demon. Like I said, I don't want to just play a tutor spell. I want to impact the board somehow. So for 7 mana, I get a 6/6 flying body with a tutor stuck on it, and I really do like that. So now we're getting into part of my removal package. These are just kind of like some of the highlight cards. So first I have Sylvan Reclamation, which I get to exile up to 2 target artifacts and or enchantments. It has basic land cycling, which I don't think I would ever use, but I really like that I get to exile 2 things. Usually this is going to hit gods, or it's going to hit somebody's playing just artifact shenanigans, so I like that. I'm running Utter End and Anguished Unmaking. Do the same thing, the difference is 1 mana and 3 life. I just really like the Utter End artwork, and I think both are good cards. Hit everything. Martial Coup and Blasphemous Act are the only 2 board wipes I have in this deck. I don't want to wipe the board much. This deck loses a lot of tempo with an empty board. So they both kind of have value. Blasphemous Act will pretty much only ever be played if I'm against a token deck, elves, goblins, that kind of thing, where they pretty much lose the game if their board gets wiped. And Martial Coup gives me the benefit of having some soldiers on the battlefield. So that's kind of like my value there. Next are the gods. So I only have 2 gods in this deck. One is Ioris, God of Victory. He's in the deck because he gives my creatures menace, and because he prevents all damage that would be dealt to them while they're attacking. So it just kind of makes it easy for me to just attack and not have to think about anything. Xenagod, a busted card sometimes. Even if I'm attacking with something with 5 power, it turns basically into a 10/10. And if it hits, then, that's 10 damage. If Saskia is on the field, that's either 10 damage to somebody else, or that's 20 damage in 1 turn. It's pretty crazy. Next is my, I'm going to say, damage modification. So World at War has a lot of words, but what it does is it gives me a nether combat step. So does Waves of Aggression, and I can retrace waves to get a second activation out of it. Irelia, same thing as the previous two cards. I basically just want to keep attacking and laying on the pressure. Speaking of pressure, True Conviction. Creatures I control have double strike and lifelink. This card, if you put this card out and you have Irelia out and you have Saskia out or another creature, you pretty much just win the game. It's pretty disgusting. Gisela, one of the two true damage doubling cards in this deck. The other one being Gratuitous Violence, but I don't have that card yet. And she's a solid beater. 5/5 flying first strike. Can't get over that. Here's my dirty win con of the game. Triumph of the Hordes is just disgusting. Until end of turn, creatures I control get +1/+1, trample, and infect. It still only takes 10 infect damage to kill somebody. And Saskia's trigger will still work with infect. So if you do 10 infect damage to one player, then Saskia will trigger and you also do 10 infect damage to another player. So you will just kill multiple people with this card. Marshal's Anthem. It's an anthem and it can return cards to the battlefield. Same thing with Shieldred, but the thing about Shieldred is she's a super big threat. I am running all of the Praetors in this deck, but I am not going to be running, or I'm not going to be showing you two of them because I don't own them yet. But I have Shieldred and Elishnorn. Both are super huge threats when they come on the field. Super good cards. Urabrask is also going to be making his way into this deck. And also Vorniclux. Massacre Worm, it just basically gets rid of my opponent's mana dorks, and also just makes trading easier because until end of turn they get -2/-2 on their creatures. So if I have a creature that's a 4/4 or a 5/5, and it was hitting a 6/6, it's gonna get through. It's gonna be getting through that. So I like that card. Next is the land base. The first land is kind of I don't want to say budget land. I don't like playing tapped, I don't like playing lands that enter the battlefield tapped in this deck because it really slows the deck down. But this one I'm making an exception for because it will give me 1 mana of any color. So I do like that from Grand Coliseum. Command Tower, Exotic Orchard. So Cavern of Souls, I'm usually naming one of three things. I'm usually naming either angels, soldiers, or praetors. I have 3 angels in this deck, but all of them are very impactful. I have about 6 or 7 soldiers, which are all, again, pretty impactful. And all the praetors are pretty much game-winning cards. So that's why that's in there. And then I think, so we have 2 more cards. Sunhome, Fortress of the Legion. It's just a mana sink. It gives a target creature double strike. And Okina, Temple of the Grandfathers. Great card considering I have so many legendaries in this deck, and it just pumps them up. I do have about 4 haste enabler cards other than Xenagod in this deck also. So so that's the main deck tech of my Saskia the Unyielding EDH deck. I will be coming at you guys again with a full deck tech sometime. But so for now, that's my EDH deck.
Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face, tell me that you love me, even if it's fake.